nobody should venture into entrepreneurship if they want predictability, if they want steadiness. In fact, when we hired people, we always checked for two things. We checked for tolerance for ambiguity and tolerance for frustration.
You also need to have an element of risk assessment continuously all the time. You can't walk away and say, I got this $10 million from a great investor who loves me because I'm too smart and I'm going to buy my Ferrari tomorrow.
When we're looking for tech entrepreneurs in Singapore, one of the challenges we often find is, do you have a global vision? You've been able to do that quite successfully. How was that journey like? Welcome to TIE Talks, where we bring exceptional insights from entrepreneurs and founders who are shaping their industries and really transforming the world. Today, I'm so excited to talk to two entrepreneurs, Puneet, who's built and scaled multiple tech ventures in Silicon Valley, came back to Singapore, is on the global chair board of TIE, also on the board of many other educational institutes, as well as plays such an active role in the tech investing through his firm Solmark. We also have Atul, who's the chairman and the founder of the Global Schools Foundation, an education entrepreneur who was recently the recipient of the Pravasi Bharatiya Samman in 2025 and has, really scaled up and built out this global education business starting from Singapore today in 12 plus countries. I think what's very interesting is to talk about their common journeys, their longtime friends who started out in Mumbai together in HCL, and how took very different paths to entrepreneurship and learnings that we can have as, entrepreneurs and founders. Well, such a privilege to be interviewing both of you. Would love to sort of start with talking about where we started, where did you guys sort of meet, how was the early journey in tech, how you then moved on to overseas journeys in new countries, and almost your entrepreneurial paths took a bit of a fork and you did very different things, and now how you both are back in Singapore. So let's go back to the Mumbai days. What brought you both to Mumbai? Puneet, why don't you start?
It was our first job for both of us. HCL, when they hired us, they asked us to write three choices, 1, 2, 3, where we got posted. I gave Delhi as my first choice. I gave Bangalore because that Delhi was my hometown, Bangalore as the upcoming city. And third, I was dating Sukanya, so I gave Calcutta as my third choice. And lo and behold, I found out that I got posted to Bombay. So that's how I ended up in Bombay. And I must say, serendipitously, it was perhaps one of the best things that happened to me. Starting in Bombay, which was the commercial capital, but more than that, very accepting of a young person wanting to do what they want to do was a great change for me. We ended up in Bombay, but I just simply could not afford to pay rent, the high rents of Bombay, on a $1,200 rupees a month basic salary. And so we ended up cribbing to our boss, our common boss, and the company had a flat in Pali Hill. And so that's how we actually ended up together in Pali Hill. I think the earlier journey for me in HCL was, it set a trajectory in terms of how we were thinking. One of the things that HCL did very well was it really empowered you. And there were really no boundaries at all. It did not set any boundaries for you. It allowed you to do whatever you wanted to do. And really the notion of fun at work, they epitomized that. And it instilled into us really an ethos of, working very hard. So to me, I owe a lot to HCL, and I actually owe a lot to Bombay, because having started my career from Bombay really set me up on a very, very different kind of a thought process and a mindset. I don't know, Atul, what your thoughts are.
Let me take you before HCL.
Yes.
And we got some common roots there. So as you know, I grew up in Nagpur. I was born there. And I went to REC Nagpur, which is now VNIT Nagpur. And I found out after we joined in Bombay that Puneet actually also colleged in Nagpur. He did it for chemical engineering from NIT and very close to where our college was, not very far off. So we had great beginnings, but we never had a chance to meet during the college days. We met in Bombay. But my Bombay was the last choice. So I gave Delhi, I gave Chennai, and I think Chennai or Bangalore. And I said, Bombay is like a hometown, right? So why do you want to go there? Right. But then they gave me Bombay. And the weirdest thing was my HCL interviews were done by Sujit Bakshi. He was like a absolute, he was like a king. He was like a king, and the way he used to come across and confidence with which he used to speak. And for me, it was a campus interview. Campus was deserted by 6 p.m. We were hanging around, and like 11:30 in the night, I said, I think they have already got their candidates. And we were about to leave. Then suddenly I got a call. They were sitting in the guest house doing a campus interview, and then said, "Oh, your number's at 11:45." And I was the only one got selected from my campus, apart from one more gentleman. And both of us were the last ones. So we actually never asked him, why did you hire us? We were the last in the queue. But perhaps I think they saw our resilience in that. They saw our ability to keep our energy right in the middle of the night. We didn't give up. We could have walked away from the interview and lost the interview. But I think that was how I got into HCL. I remember that midnight interview was really the big trendsetter. So the start was very interesting.
Was tech at that point of time sort of the exciting place to be? Because I'm assuming this is many years ago, before sort of tech took over India. And also, HCL, I remember at that time was thought of like this finishing school in a way, right? Like it was like university all over again in terms of grooming future sales leaders. Any early experiences there that then led you to start your own sort of entrepreneurial journey versus sticking it out in corporate for many years?
You're right. Actually, tech was a very new industry.
Yeah.
And one thing was that, tech decisions, buying a computer was a strategic decision. And it kind of transcended all the purchasing hierarchy within an organization. So I would very confidently walk and demand to see either the CEO or the MD or the chairman of the organization. So it opened the door directly to the very highest level because of the fact that very few people in the organization or even in the industry at that time had heard about computerization, and therefore that became a strategic decision.
Right.
So it allowed us to get to the top echelons of business titans and get to meet them. And I think that in itself was a very remarkable experience. And I think just that we were very fortunate. I mean, my undergrad is in chemical engineering, as Atul mentioned, and the only one thing I definitely knew at the end of my engineering BTech was that I did not want to be a chemical engineer. I still was trying to struggle, what am I trying to do? And I think HCL gave us that pathway to kind of really explore our own self. And it allowed us a huge canvas to ensure that our personalities blossomed. It gave us ultimate autonomy. I always narrate an incident that we had, as a salesman, I had the list price and I had a bill of material. And the company's guidance was, don't go below bill of material, because then even on per component basis, we're actually making a loss. But that was a level of autonomy that we had. And I think that thing allowed us then to dream big, think big, and kind of get an attitude that nothing is beyond reach. So I think the combination that we were in a new industry, everybody was young, our bosses were all within a few years of each other. So really the thinking was very young, was not an orthodox traditional thinking. And the fact that it had huge empowerment allowed us to chart our journey from there. And, starting in a sunrise industry like tech, at that point, we kind of rode the wave, so to speak. So I think in many ways, it was very lucky. We got to, people say, the right place at the right time.
Yeah, absolutely. I can't agree more on that. I think some of the simple things we got in our training programs, and of course, I actually was in technical side. Puneet was in sales, was the fact that we learned how to use our time, right? The mill used to start at 9 in the morning and end at 9 in the night, eventually. I mean, officially or unofficially, we used to end up working till 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock in the night, and then probably start thinking about having dinner and then go back home by 1 o'clock. But that discipline was almost military precision. And that helped us to understand how do you manage time and how do you really make sure you create the time for the priorities that you want to attach to. And the second thing, we also realized that, the teamwork, we all had stress points, but we used to come together maybe during coffee breaks or office breaks. And the teamwork was really, really one of the crucial things that we saw. So I think for me, it was a simple starting point. But I also saw that, technology that time was really big time coming into India, the start of PCs, and we had the opportunity to work on the larger systems, such as the Unix systems and the mainframes. semi-mainframes. And we realized that, the whole HCL was all about entrepreneurial spirit, as he explained. So we know a lot of our colleagues went down to various industries and became entrepreneurs because the essential grill about what makes an entrepreneur, being able to be resilient, to be able to take the stress, to be able to work in your downside, really made it very, very interesting for all of us.
Right. So having spent, sounds like beautiful years in Mumbai, I think both of you decided to venture out. You moved to HCL in the US. I think you at some point pivoted to IBM and then came to Singapore. What prompted that, almost that exploration right at that point to go into these new markets? Particularly, I guess Silicon Valley, Indians still had a charm for it in a way, or at least we had that. But Singapore was fairly unknown, new, small market. And how were some of those early years like? What did you have to learn, unlearn, especially from a cultural and from a business perspective as you establish yourself in some of these newer markets?
So I came here first in 1987, right?
Oh,
2
wow.
years in the job.
Right.
I was asked by HCL to go down here for a particular project. And I came and I was driving down now what you call as a ECP. I was just driving over that Rocha Bridge and I was enjoying the view and I said, wow, this is fantastic. Second thing I found was this place was very active and very vibrant. So for me, that first interaction of few days and subsequently I came down one more time and then finally I moved in here at 91. So I remember when we had the opportunity to work with one of our common bosses who was one of the co-founders of HCL and I went to him once and I said, यार मुझे foreign जाना है. तो बोले क्या करना है आपको? मैंने कहा नहीं, I just want to go out of India. Tell me what is a good opportunity. When there was some opportunity in the US and here, and he said, it came to me and I said, well, I prefer Singapore. It has that cultural fit. You don't feel out of place, being an Indian and Asian. And the second thing is, it was really coming up at that time. I could see the early upside of Singapore and the transformation that was taking place. For me, my technical point of view, I realized that the projects that we were doing in Singapore, for example, we did the first project together with a couple of other consultants, was the automation of income tax filing, which was done in 93, 94. Wow. We used to fill a form and then we had to convert those forms into OCR and then OCR pushed the data into mainframe. It was amazing. And then we saw the internet actually coming in, the web browsers. So I remember we had the first email IDs in Singapore in 92. And so I was told that you are supposed to use it. So I had a login and a password. And we had to justify why we are an R&D setup and why we should get an email. I mean, it went through a regulatory application process. And then we got an email address. It was amazing, those days. But Singapore always was a technological marvel. Their early adoption of technology, they're thinking about the fact that, I could automate my income tax filings, which led them to, save a lot of money. And like that, we did a lot of projects here. And for me, it was a clear evidence that if some place has to be a technologically advanced place, it is definitely Singapore. The adoption is very good.
Mine was through accident. When I joined HCL and I joined sales, then I realized that it's good to do an MBA. And I sat for CAT twice. I failed twice. So I thought, okay, let's take the second best or easier route is to go to the US and do an MBA. And the person that Atul also mentioned to was our common boss, Arjun Malhotra. He then called me while I was still in the US to say, hey, don't come back. We're actually going to start HCL America. So I wanted to stay back and help us start. I'm also coming there and we want to start HCL America.
This is post your MBA.
So this is actually, in fact, during my MBA.
Understood.
And so it was actually not through design that I stayed back. It was just a coincidence that HCL was starting something there and I ended up there. Then we moved to Silicon Valley. I was in New York and moved to Silicon Valley. And I think what Atul also alluded to, the whole entrepreneurial spirit continued to be with us. And then the Valley kind of only reaffirmed that whole idea.
Right.
So I think everything kind of fell in place. I worked in HCL and then finally in 96, a bunch of us, we all left HCL and we figured, hey, there's this whole idea of being an entrepreneur, going out and trying our ideas on our own. We'd seen many success stories, many failures as well. But, as there is always a confirmation bias, you only look at the success stories more than you want to focus on. And we said we'll do it on our own. I think having a good set of people to work with as my partners and getting the support of the family was a very big impetus for me to kind of take that step.
Right.
And, being in the Valley was a mecca for tech, Lots of new changes were happening. Many new opportunities were coming, were abounding. So really from that, it just seemed like a logical way to progress and to move. And, I think we were just lucky. At that point in time, I would just say that everybody works very hard and everybody works, towards success. But whatever you define and whatever is the definition of success, that you get closer to that or not is a function of many things. And part of that is luck. And I think we just got very lucky that as we stepped onto it, it showed us that yes, this could be done. And so one thing led to another. And here we were then as entrepreneurs. And luckily, we were able to build businesses, get some early exits out of it, and continue down that path.
Atul, you took a very different journey because, of course, both of you had a background in tech and then you decided to go and get into education. I guess no one in your family had a background on sort of the education business. How did you take that leap of faith? How were some of those early days like, and what was sort of that inspiration in starting this out?
So for me, it was very unconventional because I came from a middle-class family. Nobody in my at least known acquaintance were doing business. So for me, this plunge was very different. And of course, families had a lot of apprehensions about it. But for me, the good part is I may not be a social animal, but I'm a good listener. And I suddenly realized that there is a need for an education institution here which not only is able to deliver at your budgets, but also more to keep that comfort and integration, a smooth integration for people who move between Singapore and India, or for people who move from Asia to here. And more towards the Indian expats who were coming here. And there were obviously, not everybody came at expat salaries or companies paid for their fees. So there was, I would say, a larger pie of population that were dependent on their own income. And therefore, the need for creating a education school, which not only offered that Indian curriculum seamlessly, but also something that met everybody's pocket. So I think that's how I got the idea. Definitely, it was a completely uncertain thing. I had no idea of the capital involved. I had no idea of how to get it work. But again, the training back in your early days really comes up. Because that is where we always were thrown into uncharted waters. We never had a predictive next day. So when this came up, I said, let's see, we'll put together things, like a Lego and see how it goes. And I think that's how it came up. And the good thing is once the school was announced, I saw there was a huge interest provided by the various communities here. And that interest gave me the confidence. But then again, the question was, is capital is enough? Can you drive it forward, et cetera, et cetera. But I think I didn't put milestones which were of unreasonable expectations. I just put my milestones as simple, like let's take one day at a time. The passion for perfection or passion for getting things right or getting things successful, of course, that drove the whole morale behind it. Especially when you are a young entrepreneur, when you start, nobody looks at you, nobody is willing to give you that audience. And that was a phase that I also went through. So I think I always say to youngsters who want to be budding entrepreneurs, don't look at the noise around you or don't give too much of weightage to the noise. The noise can be in different formats and he's a failure, it's going to go down, iske paas to paise nahi hai, family kaise chalayega ye. But I think more important is you believe the idea. And if you think you got a great idea to click on, just go behind it and money follows. And in my early days, somebody actually gave me that good piece of advice. And he was a gentleman who was chairman of a very large education institution, very reputed. And he told me, he said, don't chase money. In anything, particularly in education, don't chase money as an objective. Money will just follow. But what you do for the community, if they like it, and especially if you create good individuals out of the schools, that is what will ultimately pay dividends. I think that was a very good advice in that time.
When we're looking for tech entrepreneurs in Singapore, one of the challenges we often find is, do you have a global vision, right? Are you able to build a business and start from here, but then be able to expand across the globe? And you've been able to sort of do that quite successfully. You started off with one campus. I believe now you're across 12 plus countries, 50 plus campuses. How was that journey like, starting from an Asian Singapore sort of small community, small ecosystem to then going and venturing into some of these new markets, and any advice and learnings or failings along the way on that spectrum?
I think for any new startup, Singapore is a very good place.
Yeah.
One of the very good places, I would say. A, you don't have the bureaucracy pain points. B, everything is market driven. And I think liquidity is super good here. Taking up from here, it was largely word of mouth. Communities in Malaysia, Japan, they all started reaching out to us, Thailand. We want a school here. And that took us to that exploratory mode. So initially we had a small team, but I'm very fortunate personally because, we always managed to build and expand our teams with very like-minded people. Many of our colleagues have been with us for more than 20 years. And the idea is that you bring in diversity in thinking. You bring in diversity in competency and skills. And I think that has been a very open place for us. We've been always making sure that we bring in people with understanding of new markets, understanding of capital, understanding of investing, understanding of how do you build great academic platforms. So we've been talking to educators in the market, we've been to the universities, and we often take a lot of ideas and inspirations from them. So recently I had a chance to interact with provost of a university in WGU from US. And they are one of the largest universities who run about what we call as continuous education for people who are working full time. And they said, at that scale, at 300,000 plus students, we offer each student a huge personalized pathway. And actually that stuck with me forever. I came back, I sat with my teams and I said, look, can we do this? So we have a very open team. They are very willing to ideate. And I said, I want to create a fully personalized journey from your kindergarten to grade 12. And we were able to do that. So I think putting the team together, making them have that autonomy that Puneet talked about, that it's my piece, I'm going to do this for it. And it's not like I don't really care about what happens, the risk is the organization, success is mine, I make the money. I think that approach we don't have. So culturally, we've kept that innovative approach, very entrepreneurial approach for every position, including for teachers. So it has been very, very interesting. The growth has been basically organic, I would say.
Puneet, coming to your entrepreneurial journey then, you talked about Silicon Valley, you talked about starting and exiting businesses, but talk us through that journey, right? You decided to start. How did you get a set of like-minded people to work together? How did you build that out? How was that journey like?
Yeah. I think the team was a very important criteria.
Yeah.
We were friends. We had worked together. We all kind of came together at that point in time. And we were very, lucky to recognize very early on everybody's strengths and weaknesses. And Arjun, who was senior to us, because at one time, many of us actually worked for him in the team. And he kind of set a non-hierarchical tone. And he had fostered this feeling amongst all of us, that look at augmenting everybody's strengths, and B, don't let politics get into the business. So it might be considered very patronizing today, but every day in the evening, all of us with our families, we all would get together. So all the tensions of the office would melt away in the evening when the wives and the kids and everybody got together, and we'd thump each other's back, etc., and then say, that was a terrible thing you said at work today. But we had this compact amongst us that whilst in the room, we could argue, debate, and kill each other. But the moment we walked out of the room, whatever was the collective decision was the decision of the group. And at that point, even a small roll of the eye or a shrug of the shoulder could destroy that integrity. And we were very, very conscious of not doing that thing. So I think starting with a great team, another foundational ethos was we always felt that the people, if we hire good people and they're smart enough, then they will know what needs to be done. We don't have to say to them what needs to be done. And people really enjoy working if they feel that they're realizing their best, that the environment gives them an opportunity to blossom. So I think with those two ingredients, where people were really feeling that they are empowered, it was something that we had learned in HCL, and that we ourselves were, a very tight-knit team. I think those were two very strong ingredients that kind of gave us a huge fillip to get our business going. Technology changes very rapidly. So we had to kind of navigate through the frequent changes that were taking place at that point in time. And I think keeping a close ear to the ground, talking to our customers, this partnership with our clients, with our partner, with our employees and everybody else kind of allowed us to navigate that ever-changing face of tech. Arjun, I must give credit to him. He always said, I don't want to be a large ocean-going liner. I want to be a speedboat that can navigate the choppy seas of change very rapidly. And I think with that mindset, we internalized it. All our teams were small teams, and each team behaved like a company in itself. So that empowerment that, you're a team and you can do what you want to do, propagated that idea. And we were very conservative. So when I remember during the dot-com boom, people were having their offsites in Rio and their business cards had English on one side and Japanese on the other. I remember we were thinking, okay, where should we have our offsite? And then, we all decided that we'll have our offsite in the office on the weekend because, we don't have to commute very far away. We don't have to, leave our families behind, etc. It was such a boring idea and everybody cursed us. And our logic was, hey, we don't have to go out anywhere. Office is empty. The space is there. We love the boardroom. We can get whatever food we want to and do the same. I think that fiscal jurisprudence also in some ways kind of held us instead, because when the boom turned to bust, we were able to navigate, those changes. Much of decision making actually flows through the culture you build. Once the culture is set, once people have a sense of belongingness and, you come together and office politics is kept to a minimum.
Yeah.
I think those ingredients kind of then propel you forward.
You both have such a positive take on entrepreneurship, but I guess I'm sure somewhere along the way, there were those moments of, can I do this? Doubts or any dark times or tough times that you both faced. Would you want to talk through the audience through any of that journey?
Entrepreneur dies 1,000 deaths every day. Okay, that's one thing. But, you have to kind of keep those worries aside, put a smile on your face so that you can be more, you have this motivational thing to everybody else because everybody's looking up to you.
Yeah.
So I think one thing about entrepreneurship is nothing is perfect. Nothing is linear. You go through so many ups and downs.
Yeah.
I mean, that's part and parcel of the territory. And I think we came up on the right side at the end of the day. I think to us, that was lucky. But nobody should venture into entrepreneurship if they want predictability, if they want steadiness and all that. In fact, when we hired people, we always checked for two things. We checked for tolerance for ambiguity and tolerance for frustration. If you did not have these two things in ample quantity, then we wouldn't hire you. So change is, as cliched as it may sound, is the order of the day. And to be able to navigate that, that's why leaders are there, really. If the business is on autopilot, then you don't need people. Then business will continue. But unfortunately, that's not the case.
Atul, what about you? Did you find any time?
I would to add to his comments. I think I would say any entrepreneur needs to be also a chief risk officer. For example, I follow a very simple method. I keep asking my team members, what will go wrong in this? What is the worst case outcome in this? Okay. As long as we don't have to go and ask our families for money to be able to bail out from the situations, that is fine. Right. And more importantly, it's all about thinking constantly about the future. Even though education, like universities, is a very different, very steady cash flow business, but you can make mistakes. You can do wrong calculations. You can overdo what you want to do, right? So I think we need to have that balance. So my suggestion would be that you also need to have an element of risk assessment continuously all the time. You can't walk away and say, I've got this $10 million from a great investor who loves me because I'm too smart and I'm going to buy my Ferrari tomorrow and I'm going to really go about blowing up the money. So that's one. Secondly, I would also add to it that entrepreneurs need humility. And I think Singapore is one place where I can say it taught me humility left, right, center. It is about whether you meet the local leaders, you meet the local businessmen. It's all about being very simple. You can bring your ideas together, but you don't have to post and boast about it. So I think that humility in entrepreneurship is very important. You can see that world over. I have met so many great leaders from around the world. And I think one thing that stands out among all of them is humility.
Moving then on to the next few years, Abe, for both of you personally, like how do you think of the next few years in terms of impact, giving back? I know, Puneet, you've been involved so much with investing, but also mentorship, community building with TIE. You do so much for the ecosystem. Atul, from your education, entrepreneurship, and sort of just impacting the lives of so many students, how do you measure impact in the next phase of your life? And then also the other question, which of course we all always have to add on, which is AI, right? And for education, I'm very curious. As a mom of 2 young kids, my kids already are familiar with AI. My elder son just tells me, just chat GPT it. So how do you see AI impacting education, investing, and sort of the startup ecosystem?
This is a transformative time like we had when we had browsers in the market, right? The web browsers. Yeah. Similarly, PC was a transformative time. Browsers came in. Then a whole lot of other things came in. Then social media came in. This is exactly like that. There's too much of gas around it, too much of, unnecessary attention around it. Ultimately, it is going to get you something which is much more meaningful. For example, imagine you have 2 kids. They go to the schools. You as a mom go and type a question. For my child, I would like to know what are the areas that I need to pay attention to. If you get the answer, that's equivalent of 10 parent-teacher meetings. We are doing that, right? We're building the technology layer to be able to provide that interface to a parent, or for that matter, for a child to say, my unit exams are coming up next, what should I do? That's what they go and ask the teachers. We're saying, okay, now we'll build AI things so that we have a full first-party data around what children do in the school, what parents do in the school. And we should be able to create that. So for us, AI is all about aggregating information to you in a very simplified format and making your job easier. That's to me is AI.
I would second that. And then we, as an investor, we're looking to entrepreneurs who are solving some foundational problems. And if they solve that foundational problem where they build something that somebody's willing to buy and they build it at a point where they can make it profitable, then those are the 2 vectors around which we kind of continuously assess businesses. To us, AI, as to how it has an impact on the outcome, decision-making, discovery, how does that actually give you a little bit of a moat? How does that differentiate you? That is what is fascinating for us as a use or application of that technology. And these technologies, trends will continue to use. We've seen these technology shifts happen before. And I think anybody who can kind of incorporate that and build a sustainable business model that eventually solves a business problem profitably, that is really what we look for. Of course, you cannot be immune to a new technology because everybody else has a competitive edge using it. So we look and see how is the entrepreneur really using it effectively. Do they understand what it is? And then are they able to incorporate and build through that? And we look at the smartness of the individual to say, is she or he able to incorporate that change in their business model, and how do they go about that? I think coming to impact, it's a question that kind of plagues us all the time. I think at every point it kind of plagues you. It is not something that you kind of reach at the top of the Maslow's pyramid that you want to do self-actualization. I think at every point you're kind of thinking about it. I think about today that I'm a first generational entrepreneur in my family. Nobody was an entrepreneur. I think I love the thing about entrepreneurship is that it allows you to fructify your vision, and not just your vision, actually allows you to build a platform where many others are also dreaming about how they can realize their own visions. So I love the thing about entrepreneurship is that the purity of it and how it allows people to move forward together. TIE, of course, is a very big platform fostering entrepreneurship. So I'm lucky to be associated with some of these platforms around that. I also think that there are other places that we have to give back. There's a friend of mine in Singapore, his name is Girija Pandey, and he always talks about trifurcating society, and I love that model. He says the middle will somehow take care of itself, but if the top has the obligation to take care of the bottom layer, then that's a very good compact in society. And I think we think about that in terms of how do we have impact. But it's a journey that you're constantly searching out for. There is no definitive answer to say that. Because the challenges are so humongous, and our ability to attack or impact those are so minuscule. But I do say one message, if I have to say to your audience, is that just because it is a very small step don't hesitate from taking it, because as the cliche goes, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step. So take that single step. Don't worry about the change that you will have, but that single step in itself will give you a lot of energy, a lot of momentum to move forward.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, and particularly to young audiences which are so mesmerized by artificial intelligence, is that you have the LLMs, which are the ChatGPT and OpenAI and others, and then you use that technology to create your vector DB of your entire corporate data. Let's say I'm a bank and I want to create a fintech product around it. The bank has the whole information in their mainframe. And now you need to go and access some parts of it to create specific queries for your employees or for your customers. You just have to create a middle layer called vector DB. And then that interfaces with the LLMs and with the corporate data. Today, the growth that is happening and the opportunities that are coming up are in this particular space where you don't have to go and write a OpenAI or a ChatGPT. You use that as a browser, as a prompting tool, and then run the prompts on your corporate data. I think that's where the opportunity is. So youngsters who really want to play a big role in the AI space, they need to look for where are the problems. So what are the problem statements of the corporates, of the banks, of the different sectors, including oil and gas and manufacturing. And imagine you can create solutions for a manufacturing company to increase their sales or to increase the manufacturing output. I think that's where the opportunities are. So for me, AI is all about another technology, but it's about putting those queries together which allow you to take better decisions, to make much better investments, and to get a better return for your investors.
Thank you both for taking the time to speak to us, and look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Chandan.